Korea is one of the stupidest countries in the world. I think Korea is one of the most stupid countries in the world. I don't even think Korea is a first world country. On the mask and the plastic surgery, majority of the here got plastic surgery. I think this country is a second world country at best, because how are you so stupid?
Better known as Johnny Somali, is now facing 3 years of hard labor in a Korean prison, 5 years on the sex offender registry, and a very real chance that the consequences follow him all the way back to the United States.
They told the judge this was twerking on the bus. This was twerking. How is that a crime?
That's my next target. Where the can I find this one?
So the internet's favorite chaos tourist is finally getting a reality check, because Ramsey Khalid Ismail, better known as Johnny Somali, is now facing 3 years of hard labor in a Korean prison, 5 years on the sex offender registry, and a very real chance that the consequences follow him all the way back to the United States. Let's break down exactly where things stand, because this situation moved fast and the details are genuinely wild. The final trial day was February 27, 2026. Johnny showed up in a black suit, glasses, and earlier than he'd ever arrived at court before, which honestly says it all. When the prosecutor walked in recommending 3 years imprisonment with hard labor, a fine, and 5 years on South Korea's sex offender registry, people tend to get serious real quick. All 8 charges were on the table together: 4 counts of obstruction of business, 2 violations of the Minor Offenses Act, and 2 deepfake charges. The prosecutors came in with zero mercy, and you'll understand exactly why as the video goes on. Johnny's lawyer tried some damage control in closing arguments. They claimed his ignorance of Korean culture led to the shopkeeper incidents, pointed out that one deepfake victim initially didn't even recognize the content as sexual, and attempted to shift some blame onto the other party for distributing the video. The judge wasn't buying any of it. By multiple accounts, he was visibly giving Johnny the side eye during the closing statement, not exactly the energy you want from someone deciding your next few years. Then Johnny himself stood up to speak, and that's where things went from bad to just embarrassing. His big pitch for leniency included claiming he'd been held captive in Korea for a year and a half. The guy who flew there voluntarily, committed crimes on camera, and got hit with a travel ban is calling it captivity. Make that make sense. He also argued that growing up in America meant he genuinely didn't understand how serious Korean law was, an argument that legal experts across YouTube quickly called a non-starter, and the judge gave no sign it landed either. But it gets messier. Right after that courtroom moment, Johnny went live, called Korea one of the most stupid countries in the world, and said he didn't think it even qualified as a first world country.
Korea is one of the stupidest countries in the world. I think Korea is one of the most stupid countries in the world. I don't even think Korea is a first world country.
He then went on to mock their legal system, their culture, and somehow ended up on a random rant about plastic surgery.
On the mask and the plastic surgery, majority of the here got plastic surgery. I think this country is a second world country at best, because how are you so stupid?
Now keep in mind, this was the same week he'd just stood in front of a judge begging for leniency. So, as you'd expect, the Somali conviction team, a group of people who dedicated themselves to seeing this case through by attending every single trial date and documenting everything, made sure that clips spread everywhere. And it did. Then there's the letter of reflection situation, which honestly just sums up Johnny's entire approach to this case. In Korean court, submitting these letters is basically the bare minimum of showing a judge you actually feel remorse. Most serious defendants submit them repeatedly throughout the trial. Korean streamer Young Man, who had his own case running around the same time, completely understood the assignment. He filed 7 letters consistently. Johnny submitted 1, and only after the trial had already ended. At this point, it's almost funny how consistently he manages to dig himself deeper, because now the judge has nothing to work with in terms of genuine sincerity. And just days before sentencing, Johnny's mother apparently submitted a petition to the court asking for leniency, which, respect to any mother for trying. But legal experts were nearly unanimous that it wasn't going to move the needle. The timing was too late. She had no legal standing in the case, and the judge had already watched Johnny publicly embarrass his own apology on a live stream. Now here's where the consequences get really serious. Even if the judge comes in under the prosecution's recommendation, which most analysts expect to land around 2 years rather than 3, that's just the start. The sex offender registration in South Korea could carry over to the United States under SORNA, the Sex Offender Registration and Notification Act. The moment he lands back in America, he could be required to register within 3 days. Employment, housing, freedom of movement, all of it gets impacted. And if he fails to register in the US, that's a potential 10-year federal prison sentence on top of everything else. The prison itself is also worth understanding because Johnny clearly hasn't thought it through. Korea has a separate facility for foreign inmates that's more accommodating and designed with international prisoners in mind. But Johnny isn't going there. The labor classification in his sentence routes him straight into a standard Korean prison, alongside Korean inmates doing physical repetitive work. And because of the sex offender charge, the types of work available get restricted even further. We're realistically talking factory floors and cleaning duties, the kind of monotonous grind that runs on a loop every single day. No special treatment, no foreign menu, just Korean food, Korean inmates, and a lot of time to think about whether the content was worth it. The internet has been treating this whole saga like a long-running reality show finally reaching its finale. The general consensus across Twitter, YouTube, and everywhere else is that this was the most predictable and deserved ending possible. The only real debate is whether the sentence lands at 2 or 3 years, with most leaning toward 2 based on typical Korean judicial patterns. And honestly, the Somali conviction team deserves real credit here. These people voluntarily showed up to every trial date, documented everything, had legal materials reviewed, and even submitted their own documentation to the prosecutor and judge back in April 2025, predicting that Johnny would eventually submit an apology and laying out exactly why it shouldn't be taken seriously. They called it before he even did it, and they were right about every single detail. That's the thing about this whole situation. Johnny Somali had every opportunity to course correct, but he kept choosing the stream over the reality check. And now April 15th is coming whether he's ready or not. Let me know your thoughts on this whole saga, and I'll see you in the next one.
Peace.